I thought I knew what heartbreak was, but nothing prepared me for the day my own daughter looked me in the eye and told me our family home, the place of her childhood memories, would no longer be mine. Her words, delivered with a chillingly detached politeness, felt like a physical blow, one that echoed the emptiness her new husband had steadily carved into our lives. But what she didn't know was that her words, fueled by the manipulative man beside her, had ignited a fire in me, a resolve to uncover the truth and reclaim what was ours. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. It really helps the channel grow, and I love seeing where all of you wonderful people are listening from. My name is Carol, and I'm 65 years old. For most of my life, I was a registered nurse, dedicating decades to caring for others. It was a demanding job, but a fulfilling one, allowing me to raise my wonderful daughter, Madison, after my divorce from her father, Robert, when she was just a little girl. Robert's business had gone under in spectacular fashion, leaving him emotionally and financially devastated. It was a difficult time, and though we parted ways, I always carried a quiet sadness for the man he was before everything fell apart. After retirement, I looked forward to a peaceful life, enjoying my garden, volunteering at the local animal shelter, and, most of all, spending quality time with Madison. She was 28, successful in marketing, independent, and we had always shared a deep, unbreakable bond. Our little Cape Cod beach house, a legacy from my side of the family, was our sanctuary, a place of joyous summers, shared secrets, and an endless stream of cherished memories. It represented stability, family, and everything good in our lives. My peaceful world began to ripple 2 years ago when Madison excitedly announced she had met someone. "Mom, you have to meet him," she'd gushed over the phone. "He's charming, he's successful, he's perfect." And then, a few weeks later, Trevor Morrison walked into my home. He was everything Madison described. Tall, impeccably dressed, with a dazzling smile and eyes that seemed to hold your gaze a moment too long. He spoke eloquently, asked all the right questions, and appeared genuinely interested in everything I had to say. He brought me flowers, complimented my cooking, and generally acted like the most attentive suitor a mother could wish for her daughter. Yet, beneath the polished veneer, a tiny, insistent voice in my head whispered warnings. His charm felt rehearsed, like a performance. He had an unsettling way of subtly redirecting conversations back to my life, my finances, my property. I remember him asking, with an almost casual air, about the history of the Cape Cod house, its exact location, and whether it was passed down through generations. My intuition, honed over decades of observing human behavior in a medical setting, screamed that something was off. But I pushed it down. Madison was happy, truly glowing, and I told myself I was just being an overprotective mother. Over the next few months, my unease grew. Trevor seemed to become Madison's entire world. He was always with her, always calling. Our usual mother-daughter calls grew shorter, less frequent. Plans we'd made, like our annual trip to the pumpkin patch or our Christmas cookie baking day, were suddenly rescheduled or forgotten due to Trevor's plans. It started subtly. "Mom, Trevor thinks we should try a new tradition this year, just us." Or, "Trevor really wants to spend the weekend alone, you understand." I tried to be understanding, telling myself it was normal for new couples to want to spend all their time together, but the sting of being slowly, deliberately pushed out was undeniable. It felt like watching a slow-motion car crash, powerless to intervene as my daughter drifted further and further away. The first major blow came when Madison announced her engagement. She called me, tearful with joy, but then added, almost as an afterthought, that Trevor thought a small, intimate party with his family would be best. My heart sank. My family, my friends, all the people who loved Madison were excluded. "It's just simpler, Mom," she'd said, her voice sounding oddly distant. "Trevor has a very close-knit family, and they just want something small. Simpler or easier for Trevor to control?" I forced a cheerful tone, congratulated her, and swallowed the bitter pill. Then came the wedding planning. I, her mother, was not consulted. Madison would occasionally share a detail, but it was always Trevor's idea, or "Trevor chose this." I offered to help, to host a bridal shower, anything. Each offer was gently but firmly rebuffed. Trevor thinks it's all under control, Mom. We don't want to stress you. It was a polite dismissal, cloaked in concern, but it felt like a door slamming shut in my face. The daughter who used to confide every detail of her life in me was now a stranger, veiled by Trevor's influence. The final, devastating blow came just before Thanksgiving. Madison and Trevor came to my house. Trevor was particularly charming that day, almost overly so, laughing at my jokes and complimenting my decor. He even brought me a small gift. It was Madison who spoke, though I could see Trevor subtly prompting her with a glance, a squeeze of her hand. She started with the healthy boundaries speech. Mom, she began, her voice a little too calm. Trevor and I have been talking, and we feel it's important for us to establish some healthy boundaries as a married couple. We need to focus on building our 20 life together. That means, moving forward, we'll be spending holidays with Trevor's family primarily. It's important to him and to us to establish our own traditions. My blood ran cold. The unspoken message was clear. I was out. My heart ached, but the real shock came next. And also, she continued, we've been thinking about the beach house. It's such a beautiful place, and with us starting our lives together, it would really be perfect if it could truly be ours. We want to make it our primary vacation spot, where we can host friends and create our own memories without feeling like we're imposing. She even had the audacity to suggest I might enjoy a change of scenery for my own vacations. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. My beach house, my sanctuary, the home my family had owned for generations, where Madison had spent every summer of her childhood, was now a target. Trevor sat beside her, a smug, barely perceptible smirk playing on his lips, nodding in agreement. It wasn't about healthy boundaries or new traditions. It was about ownership, control, and I now realized with a sickening lurch, pure, unadulterated greed. That's when something inside me snapped. The hurt gave way to a cold, clear fury. The pain of my daughter's betrayal, the calculated dismissiveness of Trevor, solidified into an unwavering resolve. I wasn't just a heartbroken mother anymore. I was a strategist, and I was going to fight back. I smiled, a thin, tight smile that didn't reach my eyes. I understand, I said, my voice eerily calm. I think you two should leave now. I need some time to process this. They looked surprised, clearly expecting a breakdown, not a dismissal. Trevor quickly recovered, his mask of concern back in place. Carol, we just want what's best for everyone. I just looked at him, my gaze unwavering. Get out! They left, and the moment the door closed, I felt a monumental shift within me. The tears would come later, but right then, there was only clarity. I would protect my daughter, even if she couldn't see the danger herself. I would protect what was rightfully ours. My first step was methodical. I bought a large, leather-bound notebook and a set of colored pens. Every interaction, every strange comment Trevor had made, every time Madison pulled away, I painstakingly documented it. Dates, times, direct quotes. Then, I began my research. I started with Trevor. His online presence was impeccable. Glowing professional reviews, carefully curated social media. Too perfect. I hired a private investigator, a retired police detective named Frank, who came highly recommended. I gave him everything I had, every niggling doubt, every suspicion. I told him about the beach house, my intuition, and Madison's sudden change in behavior. He listened patiently, his eyes shrewd and kind. Mrs. Thompson, he said, a gut feeling like yours, especially from a mother, is often worth more than 1,000 facts. Let's see what we can dig up. While Frank worked his magic, I delved into old family records, a task that brought up painful memories of Robert. I located my old property deeds, financial statements, and, crucially, the detailed records from Robert's business before its collapse. I remembered how he had always blamed a former business partner, William Morrison, for the financial ruin that ultimately led to our divorce. He never had legal proof, just a gut-wrenching certainty that Morrison had embezzled from him. It had been years ago, almost 4 decades. I mentioned this to Frank. He filed it away. A few weeks later, Frank called me. His voice was grim. "Mrs. Thompson, you were right. Trevor Morrison is a textbook predator." He laid out Trevor's history. He had a pattern, a carefully constructed modus operandi. Target wealthy, independent women, charm them, isolate them, and then systematically try to gain access to their assets. He detailed the cases of Emma Chen, whose family owned a successful restaurant chain, and Sarah Walsh, a trust fund baby. In both instances, Trevor had become deeply involved in their lives, pushing away their families, and then, after proposing or marrying them, he'd started making suggestions about investments, property, and consolidating funds. Both women had eventually seen through him and managed to escape before significant financial damage, but they'd been left emotionally scarred. Frank had even managed to get me contact information for Emma and Sarah. They were wary but open to talking, having lived through similar nightmares. But the most shocking revelation came next. "This is where it gets really dark, Mrs. Thompson," Frank said, his voice dropping. "Trevor Morrison's grandfather was William Morrison. The same William Morrison you mentioned, the one your ex-husband, Robert Thompson, believed embezzled from him." My breath hitched. It was a cold, chilling coincidence. "We found records," Frank continued, "of a confession William Morrison made on his deathbed, not public, but within his family. He admitted to stealing a significant sum, over $2, $3 million back in 1987, from Robert Thompson. And he told Trevor exactly where that money was hidden, in a series of offshore accounts he'd set up, disguised as part of his legitimate overseas investments. Trevor has been systematically accessing that money for years. He knew about your family, about Robert, and about Madison. He specifically targeted Madison because of that connection and the belief that Robert's surviving family would eventually try to reclaim what was theirs, or that her inheritance would simply make her an easier target for future fraud schemes. He saw your beach house as part of the overall prize. The pieces clicked into place with a horrifying thud. This wasn't just about my beach house. It was about generations of betrayal, about a stolen inheritance, about a carefully orchestrated, decades-long scheme. Trevor wasn't just a con artist. He was an heir to a legacy of fraud, meticulously planning to complete his grandfather's unfinished business, and perhaps to commit further, even more egregious crimes, building on the past. The hurt for Madison was overshadowed by a burning need for justice, not just for her, but for Robert, and for every other victim Trevor had targeted. I immediately contacted Patricia Winters, Robert's estate attorney. She was astonished by the evidence I presented, confirming that with this information, Madison would have a strong legal claim to the stolen funds, now worth well over $8 million with interest. While I was building my case, meticulously compiling every document, every piece of evidence, Madison dropped another bombshell. She called, her voice tight with forced cheerfulness. "Mom, Trevor and I eloped. We just got married this morning." My heart sank, but I forced a congratulatory tone. "And actually," she continued, "we were hoping to celebrate our honeymoon at the beach house. Could you send us the keys? We're leaving tomorrow." There it was, the beach house. Always the beach house. Their honeymoon was a thinly veiled attempt to gain physical possession. I realized this was my moment. The next day, instead of the keys, I sent a large, elegantly wrapped box to Trevor's apartment, addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Trevor Morrison, a wedding gift. Inside was not a toaster or a set of towels, but a portfolio, meticulously organized. It contained copies of William Morrison's deathbed confession, notarized and confirmed by Frank's sources, detailed financial records proving the $3 million embezzlement from Robert Thompson, cross-referenced with William Morrison's offshore accounts, public records of Trevor's past attempts to defraud Emma Chen and Sarah Walsh, along with their contact information. And finally, a letter from Patricia Winters, Robert's estate attorney, outlining Madison's legal claim to the stolen inheritance, now valued at over $8 million. At the very top, I included a short, handwritten note: "May this gift bring you both the clarity you deserve." And at the bottom of the box, tucked underneath everything, were the keys to the beach house. I didn't hear from Madison for 3 agonizing days. My phone was silent. I envisioned the scene: Trevor's carefully constructed world crumbling around him, Madison's shock, her eventual fury. I worried for her safety, but I knew I had done the right thing. On the 4th day, Madison called. Her voice was raw, choked with tears, filled with a devastation far deeper than I had ever heard. "Mom?" she sobbed. "Oh my God, Mom, he's a monster." She told me everything. Trevor had panicked. He had initially tried to dismiss my gift as the ramblings of a jealous, overprotective mother. But Madison, shaken by the sheer volume and detail of the documents, began her own independent investigation. She found a hidden folder on Trevor's laptop, filled with incriminating emails to a man named Marcus Webb, discussing offshore accounts, money transfers, and most damningly, a long-term plan for criminal marriage fraud targeting wealthy women. She also found a collection of photos of the Cape Cod beach house, complete with estimated market values and potential development plans. Horrified, she contacted Emma Chen and Sarah Walsh. They confirmed every word in my portfolio, sharing their own harrowing stories, the same charming manipulations, the same slow isolation, the same veiled attempts to access their money. Madison's world had shattered, but in its place, a fierce, righteous anger had taken root. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling but resolute, "I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I was so blind. What do we do now?" I told her we were going to get justice. I put her in touch with Patricia Winters, Robert's estate attorney, who quickly looped in Agent Jennifer Liu, a federal investigator specializing in financial fraud. Agent Liu was immediately on board. The evidence we had was overwhelming, but a confession would seal the case against Trevor. Madison, showing incredible courage and strength, agreed to cooperate with the FBI. The sting operation was set for their apartment. Madison was wired, her heart pounding, but her resolve steady. She confronted Trevor, feigning distress about my mother's crazy accusations, but pushing him for answers about the offshore accounts and the money. Trevor, still desperate to salvage his crumbling scheme, and perhaps thinking Madison was still somewhat under his sway, tried to smooth things over. He explained in chilling detail how his grandfather had embezzled the money from Robert, how he himself had been tasked with protecting the, quote, family fortune, and how he had meticulously planned to secure Madison's assets, including the beach house, all while playing the part of the perfect husband. He even admitted to using Marcus Webb to facilitate the money laundering. "It was all for us, Maddie," he'd purred, "our future." His confession, recorded clearly, was devastating. As Trevor finished his sickening monologue, Agent Liu and her team burst through the door. Trevor was arrested on the spot, his face contorted in shock and fury. The charges were swift and severe: multiple counts of conspiracy, money laundering, and fraud. But it was the testimony of Marcus Webb, Trevor's accomplice, who turned state's evidence for a reduced sentence, that brought the final, crushing blow. Webb detailed Trevor's explicit plan for criminal marriage fraud, confirming that Trevor had specifically targeted Madison, using their family's shared history of William Morrison's embezzlement as a deliberate path to accessing her assets and the beach house, and as a pre-planned strategy to commit grand larceny through marriage. With Webb's testimony, the prosecution added the specific charge of, quote, criminal marriage fraud with intent to commit grand larceny. The trial was long and emotionally draining, but the evidence was insurmountable. Trevor Morrison was convicted on all counts. He received a sentence of 12 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay over $8 million in restitution, the full amount of Robert's embezzled funds with interest, directly back to Madison's estate. He lost everything: his freedom, his reputation, his ill-gotten gains. The months that followed were a period of intense healing for Madison. She went to therapy, reconnected with Emma and Sarah, and slowly, painstakingly rebuilt her life. She reclaimed her career, her independence, and, most importantly, our bond. There were countless tears, apologies, and long conversations where she expressed her regret and shame for not listening to me sooner. I held her, forgiving her completely, understanding that she had been a victim of a master manipulator. With the restitution, Madison was able to invest in her future, secure and financially independent once more. She often talks about how she never wants another woman to go through what she did, and she's now exploring ways to advocate for victims of financial fraud. Our relationship is stronger than ever. The quiet trust we always had has deepened, fortified by the fire we walked through together. And the beach house? It's ours again, filled with laughter and love, just as it always should have been. Madison even talks about having her real wedding there someday, a celebration of genuine love and honesty, surrounded by the people who truly care for her. My life has returned to a peaceful rhythm, but with a new sense of quiet satisfaction. Justice was served, not out of vengeance, but out of a deep need to restore balance, to reclaim what was stolen, and to ensure that a predator could no longer harm others. I watch Madison now, strong and resilient, and I know that the fight was worth every tear, every sleepless night. We got our lives back. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.